gonna have to put these cuffs on you for the journey, so keep your arms upstairs.
So where are we going now?
So going to the same way we went to last time, to the custody suite. Right?
And then what?
And then we're obviously going to interview you. So we'll deal with that matter now. I'll talk to you in a minute. We've got a long journey to talk about that, so give me 2 seconds.
I want to know because I need to know what we're doing.
Well, I've just told you what's happening. At the foreseeable future, you're going to be in our company for a good 6 hours. So that's where we're at the moment.
The man who has just been arrested by police is Jack Watkin, 26, a social media sensation who has been dubbed the Cheshire Kardashian for his lavish lifestyle. Watkin first appeared on Rich Kids of Instagram, Channel 4, 2016, bragging about his life as a young millionaire. But behind the glamour was a series of crimes that were meticulously hidden. He was arrested and charged with a number of serious frauds. This is one of the most notable scams among the rich kids in the UK. Let's take a closer look at the shocking case. Jack Watkin was born in 1998 in Alderley Edge, an affluent suburb in Cheshire, northwest England, which has long been synonymous with wealth, prestige, and an upper-class lifestyle. With its rows of mansions hidden behind high iron gates and tree-lined streets leading to luxury golf clubs, Alderley Edge is more than just a place to live. It's a place to make a statement. It's also home to many wealthy businessmen, footballers, and celebrities. In that world, Jack Watkin is a child born to live in the limelight. Jack is the son of a family with a stable economic situation. From a young age, he was surrounded by a life full of comfort and material, with all favorable conditions for development. He did not grow up in poverty or hardship like other children, but was raised in an environment where luxury items, such as supercars, expensive watches, vacations at five-star resorts, were not exceptions, but obvious. Although details about Jack's parents and early education are not widely known, many people living in the area say that from a young age, Jack stood out for his confident demeanor, his well-groomed appearance, and his frequent appearances at social events with his family. Some say that from the age of 10, Jack was picked up in black Range Rovers and frequented high-end restaurants as if it were part of his daily routine. Not only stopping at material conditions, Jack also showed early attention to personal image. Those who studied with him recounted that Jack always appeared in designer clothes, from Burberry to Gucci, even when it was just a school activity. He always knew how to attract attention, sometimes with flashiness, sometimes with arrogance. Gradually, Jack became not only a rich boy, but also a model of a rich kid in Cheshire, admired and feared by many of his peers. However, it was also this overly privileged living environment that contributed to the formation of a distorted worldview in Jack's thinking. When everything was handed to him, from money to opportunities, he seemed to never learn to trade to get what he wanted. In 2016, at the age of 17-18, Jack Watkin officially stepped into the media spotlight when he participated in the program Rich Kids of Instagram, produced by Channel 4. This is a controversial documentary series, recording the lavish life, spending money without thinking of the upper-class teenagers, those who were born with everything in their hands without having to work to get it. And among them, Jack quickly became one of the most prominent faces. In the episode, Jack stunned everyone when he appeared with a supercar collection worth more than £1.7 million. From the elegant Rolls-Royce Ghost, the powerful Bentley Continental GT, to sports cars such as Mercedes-AMG, Range Rover, Autobiography, and Porsche Panamera, all were openly displayed, as if they were just toys of a rich kid. He did not hesitate to reveal that all the vehicles and high-end amenities around him were gifts from his parents. What made Jack different was not just what he had, but how he presented it. In every frame, he appeared like a child star born to be noticed. With slicked-back hair, designer sunglasses, and a smug demeanor, Jack not only displayed wealth, but also flaunted superiority, turning money into a form of social power that he possessed from a very young age. For television viewers, Jack was the epitome of the British rich kids generation, a symbol of luxury that both inspired admiration and outrage. The episode quickly went viral on social media, ushering in a new phase in Jack Watkin's life, one of virtual fame, where personal image became a commodity and the dream life. After his television appearance, Jack moved beyond his role as a reality television personality and began building his personal brand on Instagram, where he honed his skills at showing off and manipulating the gaze of others. On his personal page, Jack calls himself the Kardashian of Cheshire, a bold nickname reminiscent of the Kardashian family, who are globally famous for their lavish lifestyle, scandals, and influence on social media. Jack's Instagram account quickly attracted thousands of followers, thanks to elaborately staged photos in expensive locations: breakfast at the Dorchester Hotel, shopping at Harrods, vacations in Ibiza, Positano, or Dubai, and of course the image of him leaning on the hood of a Bentley, holding a glass of champagne as if it were a normal thing in the district. It is worth noting that not only strangers were attracted, but also acquaintances, friends, and even businessmen began to see Jack with different eyes. With the image of a young, stylish man living in a luxurious world that many people dream of, Jack gradually became a symbol of the era of success without working, a young millionaire living off his appearance. However, behind the glamour of luxury hotel check-in photos and billion-dollar supercars lies a suspicious truth. Jack Watkin has not had any legal source of income for many years. Despite presenting himself as a successful young businessman, Jack actually has no specific job, does not run any official business, and does not pay income tax. All financial evidence collected during the investigation shows that he does not make money. He only spends money. The financial sham reached its zenith in February 2023, when Jack was officially declared bankrupt. According to court documents and subsequent trial testimony, he was unable to pay his debts and had no assets of sufficient value to compensate for the money he had embezzled. But what was even more shocking was that despite his bankruptcy, Jack continued to live like a millionaire. He lived in luxury hotels, wore designer clothes, traveled abroad, and regularly posted pictures of his success on social media, a lifestyle that many people could not achieve after working their entire lives. The prosecution called it a deliberate, sustained deception, masked by photos, flattering statements, and the self-styled Cheshire Kardashian. Between 2019 and 2022, at the five-star Dorchester Hotel in London alone, one of the UK's most exclusive resorts, he spent more than £139,000 on holidays, luxury suites, fine wines, and parties. The figures come from bills paid by his victims, mostly friends and business associates, who he borrowed money from and never repaid. Not stopping there, Harrods, the famous department store in Knightsbridge, which specializes in luxury goods, also became Jack's regular playground. Employees there said that Jack appeared constantly, shopping for products from Hermes, Gucci, Dior, as if he were a VIP. He often claimed to have inside relationships with major brands, even luring Harrods employees into a Hermes bag scam by asking them to invest in rare goods with the promise of big profits. Capitalizing on the allure of the Hermes Birkin brand, one of the most expensive and inaccessible handbags in the world, Jack told people that he had insider connections at Hermes, allowing him to access and purchase rare Birkin models that ordinary people could not order. He convinced people that he was in the Hermes bag business with extremely high profits, and invited friends and acquaintances to invest capital to share the profits from each deal. To increase his credibility, Jack often appeared with designer bags, sometimes the Birkin itself, photographed and posted on Instagram with flowery words like, "This will sell for double in 24 hours." Many people, who had believed in Jack's image of real wealth, easily fell into the trap of being disguised as luxury and confidence. He approached not only strangers, but also those closest to him: childhood friends, employees at Harrods, business partners, and even his own father. They had no idea that behind the young businessman's appearance was a man with no real job, no stable source of income, and living on borrowed money from others. Among the many victims of Jack's fraud, some stories became typical of the level of cruelty and sophistication of his tricks. Christine Colbert, 58, owner of high-end fashion store Dress Cheshire, was one of the first and most vulnerable victims. Lured by the promise of turning Hermes bags into quick profits, she transferred £43,800 to Jack. Jack promised to use the money to buy a batch of bags and share in the commissions after reselling them. However, she never received the goods, nor did she see any profits. She once considered Jack a friend and felt bitterly betrayed. Hannah Jakes, Jack's longtime friend, was also caught in the scam. Trusting Jack like family, she lent him a total of £98,500. Although he paid back a small amount, the majority of the money disappeared, plunging her into a personal financial crisis. Jason Watkin, Jack's father, was also a victim, showing the unscrupulousness of Jack's exploitation of his relatives. He was conned out of £24,500 by Jack, who promised him a quick return on his investment. James Erlam, another individual who met Jack on social media, invested £13,000 after being invited to buy back Hermes bags at a discounted price. Andor Farkas, an employee at Harrods, who believed Jack was someone in the high-end fashion world. Farkas transferred £14,000 to him and never received any of it. Naheem Akhtar was conned out of £840 by Jack to order a pair of Loro Piana shoes, but never received the goods. Each of the victims had one thing in common. They trusted Jack not because of his business knowledge, but because of the facade he created. A young, successful, confident man with a wide network of super-rich contacts. This led them to ignore the warning signs and allow Jack to take their money without suspicion. The total amount of money Jack Watkin stole from his victims is estimated to be between £195,000 and £200,000. However, the real figure could be much higher. Some estimates from the prosecution and the court put the loss at £420,000 when unaccounted for, payments on behalf of others, interest, and unofficial transactions are taken into account. In early 2024, Christine Colbert, one of the biggest victims, after several unsuccessful attempts to get her money back, decided to post a public warning on Instagram. In the post, she did not immediately name Jack, but clearly described the scam and the signs to look out for. The post quickly attracted the attention of the community, including Hannah Jakes, a longtime close friend who had been scammed out of nearly £100,000 by Jack. Hannah immediately recognized the similarities in Christine's post and immediately contacted her. They exchanged information, compared evidence, and realized that they were not isolated cases. Jack had been carrying out the same scenario with many people for years. Christine and Hannah devised their own plan to trap Jack. They arranged a meeting at a pub in Alderley Edge, under the pretext of closing the final handbag deal. Jack, still confident that he had not been suspected, went to the appointment as usual. On the 18th of March, 2024, when Jack entered the pub, the police were secretly present at the scene, having been alerted by Christine and Hannah. Within minutes, Jack was arrested on the spot, witnessed by many people. This event marked the first turning point in the journey to remove the mask of the fake millionaire of Alderley Edge, and opened a series of extensive investigations into the series of fraudulent acts that Jack had committed over many years. Jack Watkins was later granted conditional bail, while police continued to gather evidence and prepare for prosecution. The conditions included no contact with the victim, no further borrowing, no mortgages on disputed property, and reporting his address. However, true to Jack's reckless and irresponsible nature, he quickly breached the terms of his bail just a few months later. On the 18th of October, 2024, Cheshire police received a report that Jack had pawned several luxury items that belonged to others, including at least one Hermes bag that was said to be evidence in the case. In addition, many victims reported that Jack continued to seek loans, promised to repay, and even made light threats when asked to pay back money. These actions showed that Jack had no intention of abiding by the law and was at risk of committing further crimes while awaiting trial. Once enough evidence was gathered, the police arrested Jack again. This time, he was denied bail and was remanded in custody until the case was formally brought to court. Cheshire police searched all of his personal devices, including his mobile phone, tablet, and laptop. The initial aim was to gather evidence for an investigation into financial fraud, but what they found on Jack's hard drive opened up a much more serious criminal record, this time not about money, but about child sex crimes. When reviewing the data, the authorities discovered 739 images of child pornography, a shocking number even for experienced investigators. Of these, 274 were classified as Level A, the most serious level under the UK legal classification system, including extreme abuse that causes severe physical and psychological harm to the victim. In addition, many videos and pornographic content prohibited by law were systematically stored in encrypted folders, showing that Jack had not only accidentally accessed them, but actively collected and kept them. From a financial investigation, the police are now facing a case of technology abuse to access, share, and store child pornography, one of the most severely condemned crimes in the UK criminal justice system. Jack was immediately prosecuted on a total of 9 charges, including 5 counts of making or downloading child pornography, 2 counts of possessing child pornography, 1 count of possessing extreme pornography, and 1 count of possessing material prohibited under the Indecent Publications Act. In a separate hearing in April 2025, Jack Watkin pleaded guilty to all charges and was declared a convicted sex offender, requiring him to register for life. However, the public disclosure of these charges was not made immediately, at the discretion of the prosecutor and the judge, because a sex offender record could have a serious impact on the fraud trial. It is a rare and difficult situation in the justice system when a defendant is facing 2 completely different but equally serious crimes, and the trial must be conducted in a way that both cases are dealt with transparently, fairly, and according to due process. After months in custody awaiting trial, Jack Watkin finally faces justice at Chester Crown Court. The trial, which opened on the 23rd of June 2025, attracted widespread attention from the British media due to the unique nature of the case. A young defendant, once a social media celebrity, was now charged with both financial fraud and serious sexual offenses. The trial began on the 23rd of June with 7 counts of fraud and 2 of theft, totaling an estimated £420,000 in losses. Jack initially denied all charges, appearing calm in the dock. His defense argued that the payments were largely civil settlements and that Jack had no intention of deliberately defrauding. However, the financial evidence, the victim's testimony, and the details of Jack's manipulation of trust quickly undermined this argument. By the 24th of June, under pressure from prosecutors and incontrovertible evidence, Jack had changed his stance and officially pleaded guilty to 6 of the fraud charges. The remaining charges, 1 count of fraud and 2 counts of theft, were recorded by the court as on file, meaning they would not be tried at this time but could still be pursued later if necessary. Jack's change of heart was said to be the result of a reduced sentence agreement with prosecutors, aimed at speeding up the proceedings and avoiding prolonging the case amid media scrutiny. In his closing remarks, Judge Simon Berkson made a strong statement, reflecting the seriousness of Jack's actions. He stated, "What he did was not just a financial fraud, it was a betrayal of trust on a personal level. These were serious offenses, causing great harm to the victims, both financially and emotionally. For such acts, there is only one sentence that is appropriate." In addition, the prosecutor emphasized that it was the social media image that Jack built, the glamorous photos, the sweet words, the fake relationships, that became the most dangerous weapon in his hands. With the cover of a successful young millionaire, Jack manipulated the psychology of his victims, making them willingly open their wallets because they believed they were entering into a rare deal with a famous and trustworthy person. As of the end of the trial on the 24th of June 2025, Jack Watkin remains in custody without bail, having admitted 6 counts of fraud and previously been convicted of 9 counts of child pornography. Jack will be sentenced on the 3rd of September 2025, also at Chester Magistrates Court. The sentencing will combine both groups of offenses, financial fraud and sexual offenses, making the sentence potentially very severe. Legal experts predict that, for each count of fraud, Jack could face between 4 and 7 years in prison without mitigating circumstances. For the counts of possession and making child pornography, He could face an additional 5 to 10 years in prison, depending on the judge's assessment of his risk of reoffending and the level of danger. As a result, the total sentence could exceed 10 to 15 years in prison, with special post-release supervision measures, including lifetime sex offender registration, a ban on access to children, and restrictions on the use of electronic devices with internet connections. What do you think of this shocking case? What do you think Jack Watkin should be sentenced to for what he has done? Share your thoughts below. Leave a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the next developments and other controversial cases.